Okay. I had one more place that I was going to post it, but I think it'll be okay. Oh, there we go. So people don't get that terrible, terrible echo. All right. Well, hopefully somebody shows up.
Kanye's Bulls showed up.
Hey, Conyers, how are you? Thanks so much for coming by. So we're going to be making this cane tonight. I'm going to give people just a few minutes to show up. Um, it's a really easy cane. It's pretty much based on Donna Kato's shape-shifting cane. So my videos are known for being pretty concise, but I'm going to probably be more chatty tonight. I just want to warn people about that. I'd like people to have a little fun. And I know that I'm going to have some people who aren't familiar with polymer clay tonight. So things might be a little bit different that way too. So ooh, I'm excited. Oh, hey, Jessica. So I also have to apologize. I'm working inside a light tent. That's the best lighting that we have. So my hands here are in a light tent. So I have to put my laptop to the side here. So I have to kind of turn away a little bit to see chat and to talk to you guys. And Mish has been kind enough to help me out tonight, and he's keeping an eye on chat for me too. So I'm just going to give people just a few more minutes. How is everybody doing? How is everybody coping? This is some scary stuff, huh? I'm so happy we have technology and we can hang out. There's Mish. Mishi saying hi. Mishi saying hi. So we used to stream on Twitch. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Twitch or not. Twitch is it's a platform where a lot of people stream their gameplay. And they used to have Twitch Creative, and so we were complete and utter mess on Twitch, and I was Mama Mess, and Misha was Papa Mess. And we had some fun doing that. We had some fun doing that, but it took up a lot of my time, and sooner or later you got to do something that makes you a little money. Hey, hey, Joanne. Hey, Frank. Oh my gosh. So I just was warning people that I'm working inside a light tent because I wanted you guys to really be able to see what I was doing. And so my laptop is to my left here. So if you see me turn my head, it's because I want to see what you're saying on chat. Hey, Sherry, how are you? Oh, thanks for coming by. Thanks for coming by. So we are going to make a cane tonight, and it's a cane where you don't have to do any blending. I don't mind blending. I enjoy making blends, but a lot of people ask me to do things that didn't require a blend tonight. So, so I'm starting out with just some squares of clay. And these are at the thickest setting on my machine. There's some white ones, all at the thickest setting. And I also am going to use some black squares of clay. And well, this is probably 3/4 of an inch, sorry, 3/4 of a package of black and 3/4 of a package of white clay. Just at the thickest setting. And, I was fancy. I cut them into squares because it looks nice on the camera, but you can just eyeball it and cut the squares yourself. So we have 4 squares of black, 4 squares of white, and those are on the thickest setting of the pasta machine. And then I also have, and I want to make sure you guys can see, I also have 4 squares of red. And the red clay has been rolled out at the medium setting. I try to keep it simple. I try to say, you know, it's either the thickest setting, the thinnest setting, or the medium setting, because different brands of pasta machines have sort of different numbering systems to them, and you know people get confused. So I don't say number 9 or number 10 or anything like that. I just say, you know, thin, thickest, medium. And that I have an eyelash in my clay here. So let me just get rid of that eyelash. So I'm basically just going to stack these. And lots of times when I teach canes, especially to beginners, I do a lot of stacked stuff because it's a little bit easier than teaching people to work with round logs that have to be, you know, cut. It's a little bit awkward, especially if you're new to clay. Okay, so I'm stacking the red on top of the white, and then I'm going to stack the black on top of that. And I am, of course, being careful not to get air bubbles stuck in there. Easier said than done. So white, red, black, white, red. And don't get crazy if it doesn't stack up perfectly. It's going to be trimmed a number of times. There's a lot of trimming in making a cane. I can see a little bubble there, so I'm going to just, there we go. Get rid of that. And what I do, I'm pretty sure you can see this, is, you know, I sort of attach the clay to the end of the stack and then press down as I go. And that will really limit air bubbles that you get trapped in there. Hey Sherry, if I didn't say hello to you, I'm saying hello now. So, and you know, of course, I'm in Northeast Georgia. I'm in Athens, Georgia, and it's been sort of a cold, rainy spring. It's been in the 60s and 50s, but of course, today it's been in the 80s. So I have hot little hands to begin with. And the day that I'm trying to work with some clay, it gets hot. So I just want to make sure I can white, red, black, white, red, black, white, red, black. Okay. Because you know if you're gonna mess this up, you're gonna mess it up when you're live. You're not gonna mess it up when nobody's around to see it.
They're making fun of you, sweetie. What's red? What's black and white and red all?
A newspaper. Ooh, there goes the Boston accent. It's a paper. All right. Red, and we want to end up with the black. Now I'm looking because some folks that aren't all that familiar with polymer clay told me they were gonna come and watch this tonight. So I want to be aware of that if they're around. Okay, no, we'll see, we're stuck to the tile. All right, so that's basically a stack. Easy peasy so far. I'm gonna go ahead and trim the stack a little bit, just to make it neat. No, I got some air bubbles there too. Let's get those out just to make it a little bit neater. This is all the stuff that I usually edit out, right? Or you only see a few seconds of it. Tonight, you guys are going to get to see, like, what a slob I really I, I'm pretty good at looking organized if I can edit a video. Oh, yeah. Oh, Mish, you're so good. You're so good. So, there's our stack. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half. Let me look at it this way so I can. And I'm going to stack one on top of the other. And you'll notice I'm going to stack the white on top of the black so that the pattern stays the same. The first couple of times, way back when, uh, I would mess up and put white with white, and then I couldn't figure out, why does mine look so much different than Donna Kato's? Because that's basically what this is. This is just a slight modification of Donna Kato's shape shifting cane. All right, so now got a pretty good stack there, and I'm gonna square it up a little bit, and these are called square peers. I get them from Tiny Pandora, and I'm basically going to be editing this video and sending it off to Teresa Salgado of Tiny Pandora. It doesn't have to be perfectly square, but the more square it is, sort of the better it looks. All right, now I have this laid down like this, and I have the lines going vertically. That's important for the next step. You want to stand the stack up so the vertical lines are facing you. And what we're going to do is we're going to push it. All right, so I'm pushing from here, and so this part of the stack is going to be flat on the tile. So basically we're going to make it into a triangle. So that's what it's looking like right now. Keep going with that. And so pretty much what we did is we shifted it from a square shape to a triangle shape. Now, was that pretty clear to everybody what we did there, how we did that? All right, so that side that was white is sort of on the bottom now. Here we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this triangle in half. So the way that I'm going to do that, first thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to sharpen up my blade a little bit. This is a little sharpener that hunters use. So that's what it's advertised for. And it's got a coarse side and a fine ceramic side. So I usually just use the fine ceramic side. I just run it through a few times because it helps a lot if your blade is sharp when you're working with canes. And this is a stiffer blade, right? This is a very stiff blade. this this is a nice long, really stiff blade. It's a little long for what we're doing tonight. And this is a very, very flexible blade. And that's good for other things, but it's not so great if you're trying to get a nice straight slice of cane. So I'm just going to use my blade here just to mark the middle. I'm not very good at getting the middle, but I try. So I'm just marking the middle, and then I'm going to continue that line straight down, and I'm going to continue that line straight down here. And then that way I can kind of keep an eye on where my blade is as I'm slicing this in half, and I can stay pretty even with it. Now, the easiest way to learn how to get, nice straight cane slices, if you don't have something like a Lucy clay slicer or some sort of tool that helps you to slice canes, is to stand up and look and look directly down at the cane. And the reason for that is it's just human nature. If you're sitting in front of the cane, the blade is, you're liable to tilt the blade toward yourself or overcompensate and tilt the blade away from yourself. So, but if you're looking straight down, it's sometimes easier to figure out if you're keeping your blade straight. But these grooves that I just put in here will help you with that too. So let me see. I'm going to put my blade there, and I'm not going to hold the blade way out here. I'm going to hold the blade close, and I'm just going to rock the blade. Don't try to go through it in one fell swoop. I hope I'm not boring you guys with stuff that you already know, but just going to rock it through there. And I'm just making sure I'm staying in those grooves that I made in it. And I went off a little bit over here. That's okay. This is really warm clay. So now I have two triangles. Oh, I'm glad you're entertained. I'm an entertainer. All right, so I'm going to just put these two triangles aside for just a minute. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab some red clay. Now, this is just red clay that was left over after I made the square. So it's probably just about a half a package of clay. And I'm just going to roll that up into a log. So let me see. I'm going to put this up here so you can see it. There's like this crazy 30-second delay. And I'm going to press down here because I don't want, a big gap or an air bubble in the middle of my log that I'm making. And, again, this is where you guys get to see how I really create. If I were to do this, usually I'd have this all trimmed up and neat looking. So it would just look like I was the world's neatest polymer clay artist. A little schmutz, little smudge there. I'm going to pull that a little bit. Went a little bit farther than I wanted to go because what I like to do is cut the end at an angle. And then it blends in better. And I think I'm going to be sorry I used red because it transfers everywhere, but that's okay. I'll go ahead and trim those ends. And I'm going to trim that end. So there you go. It's just, that's an easy way to get an even circle. You know, I mean, I could have taken clay and just try to roll that into a log, but it gets very difficult, you know. It gets thinner on the ends and, or thinner in the middle, or it just isn't a nice even circle. And that's a little bit important with canes. All right, so this is, you know, a log of clay that's pretty much the same diameter all the way across. Now,
Right, so you know, it does have a nice top of it, so
it does. It does. And now, so that was, and that sheet that I rolled up, I had rolled it out to a medium setting. And now what I'm gonna do, this might actually be a little bit longer than what I need. But now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to roll this red log up in some white clay. And I don't think I rolled my white clay quite wide enough for this. We'll see. We'll see about that. So this time I am going to trim it up kind of nice. This is a nice long blade that I got from Tiny Pandora Crafting Boutique. And again, this is just rolled out on the medium setting. I wanted a fairly thick line for this. I've got such sticky clay. Sticky clay tonight. I don't think I got an air bubble in there. We'll pull that out. And it's probably difficult for you to see, but what I'm doing is just pressing a little bit so that this, you know, ridge of clay makes a line for me.
you want me to do that?
Now, I'm kind of lucky tonight in that I used red, which is all over the place. And so you can kind of see where you should cut it by where the red transferred on the clay. And again, I'm going to make that kind of beveled cut. And we can get rid of this for right now. Trim it again. Put all these scraps aside so you can make pretty Natasha beads when you're done. Okay, so now we've just made a white line just to make it, you know, a little bit more interesting. So it's just not a plain piece of red in the middle of the cane. We're just adding some lines there. We've got plenty of lines here. Plenty of interest there. And then finally, what I'm going to do, I rolled all this out because I didn't want you guys to have to listen to the whine of a pasta machine. I'll put these here. And again, you can see that red clay just transfers everywhere. And I'll put that there. And if you guys are having trouble seeing anything, if you need for us to zoom in or anything like that, just put it in the chat. Put it right there in the chat, and we'll zoom the camera in for you. And then once again, I'm going to make a little.
Sweetie, is the black also on the medium setting?
The black is also on the medium setting because I'm lazy. No, I'm not lazy. Let me just clean my blade off here a little bit. I'm not lazy. It's just so much easier for people if I just say, the medium setting, the thickest setting, or the thinnest setting. Then people don't get so confused.
Anne-Marie Moose says hi.
Hey, Anne-Marie. So, don't worry if you've missed any of this because, one, we're going to leave it up here on this channel for a while. But also, this is actually a project I'm doing as part of being on the Tiny Pandora design team. So I will be editing up the video and, writing up the PDF and sending that off to Teresa. So this will be available for everyone. Everyone, everywhere. Okay, so there we go. So that's basically just, a bullseye cane, right? We just did a red log, wrapped it in some white, and then wrapped it in some black. Easy peasy. Doesn't get any easier. It just doesn't. So what I'm going to do now is just sort of estimate how much of this I'm going to need for this next step. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off right about there. And I'm going to shape this into an elongated oval. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing with it.
I think it's called an ellipse.
An ellipse. An ellipse. Mish just told me it's called an ellipse. So again, right now we're kind of just doing one of Donna Kato's shape-shifting canes. I don't know about the rest of you. The internet wasn't such a big deal when I first found polymer clay, and a lot of what I learned from books, and Donna's book was, particularly, well, she had a couple of books, but her book on Millefiori. All right, so and I'm going to point up. So I have this elliptical shape, and I'm pointing that up. That's a technical term. If you go to art school, there's whole classes on pointing things up. Now, if you want to, you can elongate it so that it goes the whole length of these two triangles, or you can, have it do just part of the triangles. It's up to you. It's totally up to you. So. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to shape these triangles around that ellipse. Now that we know that that's what that's called an ellipse. So there you go. You got that kind of cool looking. And now we're going to square this up again. And you can do that with your square pairs. Makes it a little bit easier. And so now we're back to working with the square. Let me turn that over.
It's nice if folks like that, sweetie.
So again, I can't take. I mean, I've done this a little bit differently than Donna did. I added a red stripe, and she says, in the book she does black and white stripes, and then this piece in the center is actually a bullseye made from a blend. So that's really pretty too. But again, I did have. Oh, hey, Sherry. Um, Oh, I am glad that you made it, Mary Joy. I did have somebody ask me to please do some things without a blend. So that's why I just went in and looked at the book and looked at a few other things and said, what can I do? I'm working on a flower cane that doesn't have any blend with it either. So we've got um sort of two sides here. This one side is black. And then this side is multicolored. So what we want to do, keep it a square. What we want to do is square up what's left of our bullseye cane. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be doing a lot of reduction on this. So again, I'm just going to use my square pears. I'm trying really hard not to have a Boston accent. Square pears. To me, that sounds really strange. So it doesn't have to be, an absolutely perfect square. And actually, what I sometimes do, again, I've mentioned that I have hot little hands, and I really do have hot little hands. Is that big? No, that's not. We'll use the smallest. But sometimes what I'll do when I'm trying to get something like nice and square, and my hot little hands are making.
Jessica likes your accent, sweetie, so let her fly.
Actually, if I really let it fly, I'm difficult to understand. So people are like, "What are you talking about?" But I'll put square pears on either side and just kind of gently roll it. And I'm not kidding you. I've reduced canes this way. Where it was just so hot and muggy down here that I couldn't. Every time I touched the cane, I would reduce it for like 2 seconds, and then I would have to, stop and put it in the fridge. So, a couple of times I've had square canes, and that's how I've reduced them, is I've just used the square pears. All right. And I'm just going to trim this a little bit because it's easier to see that I've somewhat got it square, right? I didn't go crazy with it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a square cutter and I'm going to line it up here. I have to pull that up a little bit. I'm going to line it up here, and I'm just going to make a mark. Okay, I'm not going to, I want that to be more in the middle. And I'm going to actually cut this corner. Let's make sure we have the blade facing. And then she cut her own fingers off in the middle of the live stream. I'm just going to cut that out of there. And I'm going to go ahead and replace it with this, with a square of this. So let's see about how much of that do we need. And if you wanted to get fancy, you know, you could you know, wrap this again. So I've replaced that. So it's made a, you know, a more interesting design. So I just replaced one corner. Now you could replace, you know, 2 corners with that, 3 corners, whatever you want, 4 corners. Over here, I'm going to do something a little bit different. We can save that and do something with it. But once again, I'm going to just use this. Let me get it. Trying to get it in the middle. I'm trying to get it in the middle of this stripe that I put in there. And I'm going to mark, just mark it. I'm going to cut that out. And I'm just going to turn it around. So see, we have a black line here. That was just part of this. Hey, Teresa. I just was using your stuff and you missed me. Just so everybody knows, to see chat, I have to turn my head. Okay, so that's kind of an easy peasy way of, you know, making an interesting cane. Now, we have a little bit of this square left. So let me see, is that enough? I happen to have some over here. Hold on a second. I have some left over from last night. So again, I'm going to use my square pairs. And I'm going to square that up. And this time, it's big enough. Yeah, this is great. So I was just telling people that, you know, I have hot hands, Teresa. Very, very hot hands. And I live in Georgia now. So reducing canes for me sometimes is really tough. I have to constantly stop. So I often use, if I'm making a square cane, I will often use my square pairs because then I don't have to touch the cane that much. So, you know, this is a round cane right now, and I've got it between the 2 square pairs, and I'm sorry, I don't know what size they are. I just know they're the medium ones. And I'm going to start in the middle and gently roll away from myself, and then gently roll toward myself, turn it over, gently roll away from myself, gently roll toward myself, turn it over again, make sure I'm not going too far. And you can ask Mish. I've reduced entire canes this way, and you know, I just don't have to touch them. I am. I'm something. A hot mess. A hot something. And we can just keep going that way. I am, you know, it's funny because I do a lot of videos. And, you know, we streamed for a long time. We used to stream live on Twitch almost every night. I think we only took like Wednesdays off or something. But I was really nervous about this. I'm still nervous. Okay, so again, we don't need to have a perfect square for what we're doing with this. We just need to have it somewhat square. Yeah, you know. And of course, when I get nervous, I can't shut up. Although I suppose that's good for tonight. So I'm just going to trim this a little bit. And trim this a little bit. I mean, I suppose in the end, I'm just trying to do something good. So people will probably be pretty forgiving. All right, so let's just do that again. We'll go ahead and we'll add some more interesting stuff. So again, I'm just gonna use this just to mark. I'm not gonna try to cut all the way through. I'm just gonna make a mark, and I'm gonna make a mark on the other side. And I'm just trying to keep them sort of equidistant from, you know, my little center stripe there. It doesn't matter, you know, too much because, you know, you can tell people you did it on purpose. No, nobody's gonna know.
Folks are singing your praises, sweetie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna cut that all the way out. And now again, if we wanted to, you know, we could take this piece and just flip it around. But that really wouldn't be as interesting. Or we could take this piece that we cut from here and flip it around and put it in there. There's a couple of different things that we could do. But I am going to I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. Because I'm brave and crazy. Because there's more clay in the world. So I'm just making this a little bit more pointy so that it fits in there well and I don't wind up with some sort of crazy gap. So now, you know, this one's gonna look a little bit different than the one I advertised. But I'll put all of these aside and use them. We might be able to even put them together as their own cane. Make sure I'm not off camera. I'm just making this a little bit more pointy so that it fits in there. And, you know, again, you know, if you go to art school, there's pointy classes. I get a kick out of myself. Well, now that's a pretty interesting looking cane. Even without a blend, right? And it's, Teresa will tell you that sometimes the best thing that you can do if you're trying to learn to make a cane is to start with white, black, and one other color. Because of course you could do this with, um, you know, any colors that you wanted to, but if you wanted to stick with the, you know, the white, black, and one other color, I bet you this would look pretty cool with wasabi. And, you know, I mentioned before the original cane is just Donna Kato's shape-shifting cane. And I'm just building on that. You know, all of us sort of stand on the shoulders of giants, but I think that this would be super, super interesting if all of that bullseye was a blend. And it would look really cool if it went from light to dark, you know, the center light and the outside edges dark. That would provide lots of movement. But I think this is going to be pretty interesting. Now, I am going to use, I'm going to squish this up a little bit some more with um, my square pears because I'm just trying to get it to the point where I can use my square pears to reduce it. So right now, it's actually bigger than the square pear. Because this is a funny cane, you know, it's a thin cane. So I'm just trying to get it to the point where it'll just fit on those square pears. This is, I'm so glad, you know, of course, none of this makes anybody happy. You know, this virus and so on. But I am glad that we're able to connect during the internet. I mean, can you imagine if all this was happening and you couldn't even, you know, go on the internet and talk to friends and family? So I think I have that just about where I want it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim the ends of this. And a lot of people get nervous about trimming cane. They think that, oh my God, we're trimming so much of it away and we're wasting clay. And but when I use the square pears, I really like to trim it as flat as I can, and I find that it um, creates better suction. You know, it sticks to the square pear better, and it actually winds up being less waste. So again, I'm just gonna, it is still a tiny bit big. And you can use that same trick I showed you before where you can say, well, all right, I'm gonna trim off just a little bit of it. So you can mark it at the top and then extend that line down. Extend that line down. And then just rock your way down. Try to keep yourself in that line. Take your time. And that also gives us an idea of what it's going to look like. So I think that's pretty cool looking so far. And I'm going to put the scrap aside. King cap. Did I say the wrong thing, Teresa?
Yeah, excellent. She said.
I probably
You're
called them.
getting lots of compliments, by the way, sweetie.
Well, thank you, everybody. I feel like it helps because I feel like a goofball. I am a goofball. I'm lucky. I'm generally. All right. And that's still, this is still big. This is big. It's a big cane. I go ahead and I mush it onto the, which is another technical professional term, mush. I mush it on there. Then I mush the other side on there. These are pretty mush now. And to start, when I first start with these, especially, you know, this kind of cane is, you know, it's large this way, but it's thin. So what I'm gonna do is I'm kind of pressing with my thumb and my middle finger. I'm pressing those cane caps on there. and I'm going to start making a waist. And that really helps me get some suction. Now, this is the part that I've been the most anxious about, because this is the part that I usually would edit so that you didn't have to watch me reduce a whole cane. Now, I was really surprised when I went to Indie Jam to realize that a lot of people use the cane caps and they leave the very ends of the cane very, very wide, because you'll see as I'm doing this that I get mine squeezed down like just as much as I can. And I should talk about why we use the cane caps. And we use the cane caps to reduce waste. And in my mind, it also helps prevent distortion in the cane. If you don't use the cane caps, oftentimes what happens is the very ends of your cane kind of suck in, and you lose a lot more clay that way. But sometimes when you see that the cane is sucked in like that, it also means that you got some distortion.
Folks are really enjoying watching the cane part, sweetie.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad. I suppose it's pretty relaxing. Right? We all need something mindless. So this is not something I rush, right? We don't always have to be rushing. I'm kind of a hyperactive person. And so things that make me slow down like this are a good idea. Mish likes that I discovered polymer clay because although I'm actually always surprised at, you know. Now, like Teresa, to reduce a cane, I don't necessarily wait overnight or a couple of days or anything like that. And I, I've mentioned I have these really hot hands. And so what happens is if I let a cane rest, yes, it's all the same temperature when it rests, but my hands mean that the outside of the cane, is going to reduce more quickly than the inside of the cane, and I actually get more distortion. I get more problems.
Hazel Parr has a question for you, sweetie.
Okay. So that's one of the things I was saying, Hazel. A lot of people, if you remember when I first put this cane on here, it was almost bigger than the cane caps. The ends were almost bigger than the cane caps. So, I do reduce the ends as much as I can, along with the center of the cane. Um, but some people don't. They just leave those ends there. They just leave them leave them very, very wide. Um, and I think that it just never occurred to me to leave them very, 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 very wide. Now you'll see when I get to the end of this, because I'll probably reduce this to about this size. If not maybe a little bit bigger. The ends will always remain somewhat wider than the middle. Um, I don't mind that so much. I use scrap clay a lot. I use, I make what they call Natasha beads. If there's time tonight, maybe we'll show you some things that you can do with the end of the cane. And I just keep flipping it over. I start in the middle. Maybe I can show you like this. I start, trying to figure out how to show you. I start in the middle, make a waist, and work my way up on all four sides. And then when you get to this point, you can wiggle it. And you'll sometimes get a lot of action that way. Turn it over and wiggle it some more. But I do try to get those ends as skinny as I can. I don't know why. It's just how I do it. So this is making me think about it. So I guess what I do, we all do this, right? We start in the middle, we make a waist, and I push down, pinch it all the way down. Then I flip it over, and I start in the middle, and I pinch it down.
Mary Vanderwood says hi.
Hi, Mary. How you doing tonight? And I'm going to do some more of that wiggling because you can really, really sometimes. Yeah, so these are cane caps. And they are available. I'm going to shout out all my friends. They are available at tinypandora.com. It's Teresa Salgado's wonderful online boutique. Now, I don't have any particular plan for this cane. I'm not trying to turn it into flower petals or anything like that. I'm basically just going to use it to design some jewelry. So I don't have to reduce it to any specific length. Lots of times if you're making, say, a flower petal cane, you want 5 2-inch pieces, so you need 10 inches of usable cane.
Jessica says you must have hot hands because it's reducing quickly.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, it's a problem for me. It is a problem for me. It does. I do reduce canes in record time. So you can see why I don't let a cane rest because, I can never get the inside warm again. And even with cane caps or other methods. So I think I'm going to stop here. I'm touching my face. I'm sorry. I touched my face. I have an itchy nose, of course. So I'm going to, there we go. I don't get too crazy about the ends because again, there's, a lot of pretty things you can do at the end a cane. So I'm cutting it off there. Let me cut it off a little bit. And then what you can do is you can even reduce those ends a little bit further if you want. But yeah, I can reduce a cane in record time. I really can. I'm going to go ahead and cut those off because I don't really need them. Now, again, this is where my square pairs come into play for me. I really like to use them. I don't know how obvious it is, but there's, yeah, why don't you zoom in a little bit here, Mish? If you don't mind.
Go forward about 4 inches.
Yeah, I basically just want to show folks, let me get it to where they can see it.
You're off screen.
I know, I'm 30 seconds behind here, so I'm trying to.
I don't see that when you're in the right place. That's the wrong direction.
All right, this direction.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is pretty much a square shape. But if you look, there's sort of dips in the square. And I think that has to do with me and my hands. It might have something else going on there. But that makes it hard to put your cane slices together. And so I will go ahead. That's too skinny for that. I go ahead and use my square pairs again. And that really helps me with that. Now, hang on just 1 second. I'm just going to get one thing here. These are cane benders. They're round cane benders. And I'm going to roll. Excuse me. Turn it over. And roll again. Now, if somebody else knows how to stop that from happening, then please tell me. I don't know how to get that to stop. And it just drives me crazy because it really makes it hard to get the pattern that you want. Now, what I'm using here now are cane benders. Cane benders are super useful. And usually they're used to make shapes, to bend your cane into shapes. So you can add some fill and some interesting lines. But I'm using it as a little baby roller tonight. So you can see this is also reducing the cane a little bit. And this just helps me get nice sharp corners and a nice flat surface. I'm having a hard time getting that one to flatten up. Who says hello?
Donna Little.
Hey, Donna Little. Good to see you. Okay. So let's see. Let's take a look at this. Touching my face again. That is a pretty cool cane. A little bit of distortion there, but I think we can pull that back into shape. Now, I've got this. I don't rest a cane before reduction. Again, my hands are just so hot, it's just ridiculous if I do that. But I do rest a cane before I slice it. And the reason for that is because it's just really floppy and sticky. But we'll go into the middle here. So there we go. And then we can make a decision. Would we put it together like that? Now, I forgot to bring a little mirror with me because normally what I'll do is I'll, put two slices together like that and put it on a mirror. Or we could put it together like that. I think that'd actually be really cool. Okay. Now, here's one this one's been hanging around. This one's pretty cool. Well, look at that. I made an hour. I was afraid. Huh? At least you know your hands are clean before you started with the clay. Wouldn't it be funny if we found something out like, clay prevents. Yeah, all of a sudden I have this really, really itchy nose. All right, so I'm gonna go a little bit longer here because I guess I'll talk a little bit about um slicing the canes. Now I already showed you a little trick. If you have a Lucy Clay slicer or something like that, it makes life so much easier. But if you don't, um, it might be hard to see. But basically, what I used to do was I'm gonna go kind of thick. I'd mark the top, before I had a Lucy Clay slicer. And then I would use my blade to mark the sides. And then I'd mark the other side. And then again, I have a pretty stiff blade. Before I start slicing canes, I always sharpen them. This happens to be a little device made for hunters. Here, I just can't stop touching my face. Made for hunters. It's got a ceramic sharpener in it. You can actually use the bottom of a ceramic tile, not the part that's shiny, but the part that's, dull. You can run your blade along. I don't have one here, do I? I do. This is a ceramic tile, and, if you run your blade along the part that isn't glazed, it will sharpen it up for you. Let me just put this, I'll be right with you. Okay. All right. And so this is a stiffer blade. I find it easier to work with the stiffer blades for slicing. Um, if you stand up and look right over the cane, it can be easier for you. I kind of enjoy filming now because the camera is right over my work. It's right over the top of my work, and then I can see what I'm doing in my tablet. So it's easier for me to keep the blade straight. It replaces me standing up and looking over it. But I've made these grooves all the way around. I'm not going to hold way out here where I don't have a lot of control. I'm going to hold very close to where I'm cutting. And I like to use, a rocking motion. And I'm looking at either side to make sure my blade is stayed in that groove.
Like saying you can use a coffee cup too.
You can use it. That's right. I've seen people do that. They use a coffee cup. And hardly anybody, unless you're using something like the Lucy Clay slicer, hardly anybody does get, perfect slices. You take care of that afterwards. You sand it down, or so what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to use a little tool that I have. This tool used to have, we can probably go out a little bit now.
I think I'm out all the way. So
Oh, okay. So this tool used to have like this piece of plastic in it that you could slide the cane along, but I lost it. But I do use it to mark my canes. So I have even markings on it. I'll have to research, what other ways people use. So I'm not slicing all the way through. I'm just marking. And again, I usually slice canes a lot thinner than this. But let's not make life difficult, Cynthia. So, should we do this again? Did you guys enjoy this? Is this something you'd be interested in us doing once or twice a week? Probably once. And is there anything in particular? I know Frank has mentioned some things he'd like me to do. So again, I'm just marking this cane. The top is
we have two resounding yeses.
two resounding yeses. I like resounding yeses. So I marked the top of the cane, and now I'm marking one side of the cane.
We now have a slithering yes from Frank.
And I'm marking the other side of the cane. Well, I hope it helps people. I hope it gives people some. I really enjoy teaching. You know, what would probably help is if I put some glasses on. But then that would also probably be too easy. So now I have the cane marked on three sides. And and I have some glasses. Let's put them on. Make it a little bit more. Let's clean them. Holy cow. Let's clean them. And the other thing that we wanted to ask you guys is, do you like it here on YouTube? We thought that the quality was a little bit better on YouTube. I'm so messy. I'm just making sure I'm staying in that groove. And I didn't. I didn't stay in that groove. So I taught you to do something and then I wasn't able to do it.
So it sounds like YouTube is fine. They like the quality.
Yeah, we had trouble with
Hazel said she'd watch whenever she can.
oh, thank you, Hazel.
And Jessica Jesse is with Hazel.
Make sure. All right. We'll get a few more. We might as well slice it all. And then I'm just going to show you how I make a veneer out of it. And then I'll let you guys go. Oh, I missed my Lucy clay slicer.
It's good practice.
It's good practice. Yeah, it's a no. Honestly, I'm an expert. I could do this stuff in my sleep. But you'll see when I put this together that even people have been doing it for years. You, you sometimes don't. You just can't get them all. exactly the same. You have to kind of shave them down sometimes.
Awesome, Hazel. She's literally got her new clay slicer today.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's one that actually that opens up a world. It really does. It's a great tool. Um, I don't know if any of you know who Gail Garb is. We met her this fall, and her last name is spelled Gar Be. First name Gail, and she and her husband developed this really cool slicer. Um, she has that for sale now. So now we've got them all sliced up, and what happens is they distort a little bit as you slice them. So sometimes you have to kind of pull them out with your fingers. And then you can make some decisions about how you want to put them together. We'll use this one. You know, if you want to, you know, which patterns you want to take advantage of. I think I just really like the red in the center. And again, sometimes you have to pinch your corners. And the last one is the one that you have to pinch the most usually. So you just try to get it all matched up as best that you can. And then what I do is I use my blade to kind of straighten out my edges so the next round will go on pretty evenly.
Could you use those plastic thingies you have for that?
I could indeed, sir. I could indeed use my square pairs to square that up.
Okay.
I didn't think of that.
I'd like you to zoom in on this, sweetie. Give me a second.
Okay.
Okay. Do not move the piece.
All right. I won't move it. I won't move it. And again, I'm just trying to line the design up. And, you know, again, our Teresa says all the time, you're the boss of the clay. The clay is not the boss of you. So you tell that clay where to go. You control that clay.
Folks really like how that's looking, sweetie.
Yeah, it's a neat you know, they look so complicated. You know, all these canes look so complicated, and you know, it's amazing. What is this called? Is this called tessellating? Or I don't know exactly what this is called. But to the best of my ability, I am just lining up my designs here.
The center almost looks like kissing lips.
Yeah. Sometimes, like I said, they get a little distorted during slicing, and it doesn't seem to matter what method you use for slicing, they can get a little distorted. But you just, like I said, you just tell that clay, listen, I need you to go here.
There's a bar says guess what she's doing in the morning.
And you know, again, if you missed any of it, don't worry about it. We're gonna leave it up here for you to watch again. But I'm also going to be doing a nice edited piece of this, and it's going off to Teresa Salgado, and she'll put it up on the Tiny Pandora Design Team um, YouTube channel, and I'll make a PDF of it, and it'll be all good. So as you can see, you know, I'm manipulating this so that it's doing what I want it to do. And I'm touching my face as much as I can because I'm irresponsible. Oh, so hard.
We're in full Zoom, sweetie.
Okay, so can they
No,
see?
no, you're fine. Go
Okay.
back.
I am just basically forcing this to do, you know, to line up and do what I want it to do. And there might be some gaps here. Don't get. We're gonna fix those in a minute.
So V Michelle Conway says do more.
Do more lives?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I guess we will. And this last one's gonna give me a hard time. Now, I want to show you one other thing that you can do. I'm gonna take it just a slice here. I'm not even gonna try to make it even or anything. But one little trick that I don't see people share anymore. Again, this is one of the cane benders. If your clay's gotten a little bit distorted, if your cane slice got a little bit distorted, what you want to do is start in the middle and roll away from you. Start in the middle, roll toward yourself. Start in the middle, roll toward the right. Start in the middle, roll toward the left. And then you want to do your diagonals. So start diagonally that way, diagonally this way, diagonally that way, diagonally that way. And you can kind of keep doing that until you get it the way that you want it. Okay. I have to step over here for just 1 second, and I'm going to grab another piece of paper and something to burnish with. So, I've got this pretty much my back where it should be.
I moved you.
Okay. So I've got this pretty much lined up in the way that I want it. There are a few gaps, and it's a little bit uneven. It's not too bad, but if I wanted to, I could take this blade and just sort of skim over the top and even it out. But I'm not going to do that at this point. What I am going to do, though, is burnish it. And I'm going to start, and that piece of paper has a line in it. So I've got this on, you know, like a deli sheet. And I'm going to take another deli sheet. I hope if I can find one without a line in it. Okay. And I put it right over there. And I'm going to start with my fingers. And I'm just burnishing it with my fingers. And the reason why I start with my fingers is I want to feel where those seams are. Because I want to get those closed up. But I am keeping my finger like as flat as I can. I'm not.
So Jessica has to leave, but she really enjoyed it.
Okay. Oh, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Bye bye. Um, so I start with my fingers, and the reason why I start with it's actually just one finger. I start with just one finger because I want to feel the seams, and I want to make sure I get them adhered to one another. So start with that. I am keeping my finger as flat as I can. I don't use all my fingers because then you tend to put divots into it, and you don't want that. And you can almost see through the paper, where a lot of the gaps might be. So I'm just, and then I move on to a furniture mover. That's what this is that you put it underneath, the legs of a furniture so you can move it easily. And that's one of my favorite burnishers. And that will flatten it out. If you did put any little divots in it with your fingertips, that will help flatten it out a lot. But one thing to keep in mind is when you start out with divots, especially if they're kind of deep, downward pressure will only do so much for that. So you have to flip it over and do the other side. Now I've gotten to the point where I can kind of tell um, when I've burnished enough. But if you're not so used to it, you can check on it. You can pull the paper off. And please note, I'm pulling the paper off. Don't try to pull the clay off of the paper. It's going to rip and tear and do all kinds of nasty things.
Sweetie, Marie Coleman's gotta go.
Okay. Well, I think that, let's see, what time have we got?
I don't know. I just know how long we've been. It's 7:30, sweetie.
Okay.
Be safe and good luck with the new news update.
Oh, good luck. Thank you, Marie. Yeah. So you don't want to pull the clay from the paper. You want to pull the paper from the clay. And what I do is I basically just keep burnishing like that until I've gotten rid of all the gaps, all the seams. That's one thing burnishing does. The other thing burnishing does is it cuts down on how much you have to sand and buff. But once I have the veneer all burnished down, and I know that I've got it as smooth as I can get it, then what you can do, these are some great templates I have from Dan Cormier. But then what you can do is use your template or cutter to just sort of get a nice pendant shape going. All right. All right. Well, it is 7:30. We have been at this for 90 minutes. And so I am going to go ahead and end the stream. I really, really appreciated that you guys came. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll think about doing some more of them. You know, go on over to the Complete and Utter Mess Facebook page and tell me what you'd like to see. Tell me what kinds of projects you'd like to see me do. So, okay, everybody wants dinner. It is time to go. It is time to go. All right. Bye bye, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it.